of thought.
Unicorn4, lady, cactus, lady, class, lady, Kendra. You know.
As far as I can see, I wanna keep you here, laying next to me, sharing our love between the sheets. See, this is what you get when you come early.
Lady, class, lady, Kendra, lady, cactus, lady. You know. Unicorn4. You know. Lady, cactus, lady, class, lady, Kendra.
Peace, folks, and welcome back to another edition of the Prophet of Thought series, right here on the old T.L.O.T YouTube page. I'm your host, X, of course, but y'all already know that. What's good tonight is going to be wicked, y'all. And I must say this like I say every Thursday. Lady Ming is always here while I'm still setting up. When I look down, I see her face.
I was jamming, and I hope I didn't mess anything up. I was singing and everything.
What's going on?
So I hope I didn't mess. I'm good. How are you?
God, I can't hear y'all.
You can't?
I can't.
I'm not muted.
Somebody say something.
Hello?
Can y'all hear me?
You can't hear me?
Wait a minute. Hold on. Let me try something. Hold on. Say something.
Hello?
Broccoli.
Oh, now I can hear y'all.
I said, I'm sorry. I was singing to the music, and I hope I didn't mess up the intro.
Oh no, because I couldn't even hear anything. Well, it don't matter.
Okay.
It don't matter.
Thankfully.
It's all good. What's up, Lady Cats? I see you down there.
Hello.
What's good? Y'all ready for this? Lady Classic, I see you. Oh, I like that picture.
Oh yeah.
Serious. You know I'm stealing that shit. That's stolen already. Already stolen.
Yeah, we went on Saturday. We went to the 3D version of Black Panther. Me, for my mom's birthday, she wanted to see it for the third time because she hadn't seen it with her daughter, and so she needed to make sure that that happened. So we went and we took a whole lot of Wakanda pictures, Wakanda Forever pictures. So I had to make sure I paid tribute to that.
Okay. That picture is hardcore. I like that. That shit already stolen. I've already screenshotted that shit.
I'll send you a copy of it. Don't worry.
Tonight, y'all. Oh, before I get started, I got a few donations last night, and y'all know whenever I get donations, I always start the show off with thanking y'all for your most generous contributions. But y'all know who y'all are because I always make sure I write y'all a personal email thanking you for your support. And for that support, I promise to continue to bring you mind-opening content because you don't have to give me your hard-earned dollars, but you see value in this platform, so you do it. So I appreciate it because, you know, I feel fortunate that you find value in this content because you don't have to give me shit, but you do. So I am thankful for it. And like I said, you know, I always, you know, write you a personal email. So anyone who's in here who has donated to me, you know who you are. And, you know, I always write you an email and talk shit to you at the same time while I'm thanking you. So I just want you to know that I am grateful and thank you. Yeah, tonight, the title of the show, as y'all can see, is XXX, exclusive, explicit, expectations. We're going to get into a lot of stuff tonight. We're going to start off serious. We're going to start off on a serious note. And then that second hour, because I'm going to give y'all an hour to kind of have the kids, you know, around. Y'all know how I do. That first hour, you know, you can kind of have the kids in for the programming. But hour two, that's when X goes into his material that's not suitable for young viewers. So I'm just giving you fair warning. The first hour is going to be pretty calm. Hour number two, though, trust me, it's time to put the babies to bed. Fair warning. The reason why I wanted to talk about this tonight, because I wanted to talk about this on many different levels. First and foremost, we as Black people, you know, a lot of our makeup, what defines a lot of us, not all of us, but what defines a lot of us is sex. Sex this, sex that, sex this, sex that. Everything is sex, sex, sex with us. Sex, sex, sex with us. And I think at times we as a Black society, we are over sexualized. I believe our men are over sexualized. And I definitely believe our women are over sexualized. Because often as Black people, we find ourselves, especially with Black men. I mean, Black men, I think Black men are way over sexualized. I do. Because, you know, we're known to have the highest sexual prowess. We're known, you know, to have the greater sexual market value, if you will, as far as men go. We have the most testosterone as far as men go. So, of course, when people think of Black men, they think of, you know, sexual savage most of the time. With our women, it's pretty similar. Our women are always over sexualized. They are always looked at as sex objects many times. And I think there's a reason that we are over sexualized in that way, because as a society, and I've talked about this many, many times before, we as Black people, we find ourselves faced with sex at a very, very early age. Our young boys to the tune of like 1 out of 4, and our young girls even more so to the tune of 6 out of 10, 7 out of 10, according to recent numbers. Now, when you have young children who are exposed to sexual acts at a very young age, I think that sets them up to be over sexualized, and it sets them up to not just see the over sexualization of themselves, but also embrace it. And I'll explain why. Let's start with our young men. When a young boy is molested at a very young age, oftentimes he grows up to molest others because he has been defined by that particular act, even though he doesn't understand the act that's taking place. He has no knowledge of what's happening to him. So he grows up and he learns to express that sexual act, even if the act isn't really centered around the sex. It may possibly be centered around the power that the sex holds, but his life has been defined over that. Now, I'm not saying that every person that gets molested goes out and molests people, but a lot of them do. And oftentimes when you find these rapists and child molesters and child rapists and pedophiles, oftentimes these people were molested as children. I mean, that's just a statistical fact. All right. So that's one side of it. Then you have our young girls who are sexually molested and raped and victims of pedophiles more prolifically than boys are. Like I said before, to the tune of 7 out of 10, and it may be even higher. Those are just the ones that have been reported. When you have 60-70% of a female population within Black society that have been molested when they're 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11, because mind you, these numbers are by the time they are 12. Most of our young girls have seen a grown man's penis before they've even gotten old enough to see a gynecologist. Okay. So when you have a young girl who's been exposed to grown men's penises at the age of 8 and 9 and 10, she has no idea what's happening to her. She doesn't understand what's going on with her. But by the time she gets to be 12 and 13 and 14 and 15 and 16, she kind of understands what that penis is for. And she starts to understand what her vagina is for as well. Why do you think we have so many young girls popping up pregnant, 15, 16, 17? Why do you think that is? Because by the time they get to be 16 or 17, I mean, they've usually had more sex than guys their age because they've been molested by mama's boyfriend. They've been molested by cousin, by uncle, by grandpa, and in some cases, even their own damn father. So they've been exposed to sexual contact at a very young age, before the age that they can express it. So by the time they get to the age where they can express it, it defines them too. They have been defined by that act because they've been exposed to that act ever since they were a small child, before they had any clear understanding of what was happening to them. So I think within Black society, we have so much of that. So much of that runs rampant amongst us. And I think that that contributes to many, many problems that take place within Black society. I think it contributes to the illegitimacy rate, which ultimately contributes to the poverty rate. I think young boys get molested while they were young ultimately grow up and become the guys who molest the young girls and other young boys. So it's an endless cycle of sexual exploitation that never stops. Okay, it starts, it's sent out in the community and started again. sent out into community, started again. It's one of those cycles that never stops, and it's prolific. And people don't like to talk about it. I talk about it often. I talk about it often on my platform because I've had people come on my platform. You know how many people I've interviewed who have been molested as a child, men and women. I mean, I know y'all know who Poppy Hassan Campbell is. He was on T.P.O.T. talking about that. Didn't know that, did y'all? Didn't know that, did y'all? Yeah, Poppy was on T.P.O.T. a while back, and he was talking about his experience of being molested. And of course, I don't know how many interviews with girls talking about how they were molested. I mean, I don't even know. Some of them I haven't even put up. I have so many files of that, girls that I've interviewed that were molested by mom's husband, uncle, cousin, dad, the neighbor down the road, grandpa. So sexual exploitation is just part of us as a people. If you are a person who has not been molested as a young child, consider yourself fortunate, because most of us within Black society, that has happened to us. You know, it's just a statistical fact. I know it's hard to listen to. I know it's hard to talk about. I know it's hard to understand, but that's just a statistical fact. Most Black children have been molested. It's just the way it is. And what happens is you screw those kids up for the rest of their life, and they get out there and they're more promiscuous, they're more irresponsible. Boys who get molested, those are the people who more likely to molest other people and have 15 baby mamas. Girls who get molested, those are the baby mamas with 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 kids. Those are the irresponsible women. Those are the, I mean, I'll say again, it's a cycle that never ends. And I don't think I'm going to live to see the cycle end. And I don't believe many of us in this chat room tonight on this panel will live to see that cycle end. So this is what I want to ask you, ladies. And damn, Lady Kendra hasn't shown up yet, huh? This is what I want to ask you, ladies. Do you believe that if our young women, we'll start there, if our young women weren't being sexually exploited at such a young age, do you think that would stop the illegitimacy rate? Do you think it would stop the thottery, if you would, the ratchetry? Do you think that would stop it or slow it down if these young girls weren't getting molested so much?
Initially, the first thing you want to say is yes, like a resounding yes. Because you made some very, very valid points. And I can pull from examples in my own life. Not my own. I was never molested, thankfully. But you're right. I didn't realize how many people had been molested until I started meeting molested adults, men and women. And but as a child or a kid or a teenager, I had friends that I know have been molested. Like the young lady I told you about that does coke, she was molested in her past. I have a friend who has 5 children by 5 different men. You know, believe it or not, she's actually really successful, but she was molested as a child too. And in her family, the molestation was like covered up, so much so that you would find cousins dating cousins and silly shit like that. Like when I first met her, she was actually like had a crush on her cousin, but she was kind of like warped in the mind a little bit because her reality had been tarnished based off of, and when, we've been friends for about 30 years now, but as I learned more, I found that it was systematic type of molestation that ran through the family. Her mother was molested, her grandmother was molested, shit like that. So she was a damaged individual, actually. So I didn't think she would actually make it considering how damaged she was. So I do think that if if we weren't exploited as Black kids, Black little girls, that it would probably put a damper on what we're seeing, but I don't think it would eradicate it. Because conversely, I also know some women who weren't molested that have the same situations I just named, if not bigger whores, or drug addicts. So I don't know if it'll eradicate it, but I definitely damn for sure think it would diminish it a little bit, if not for only the thing that you think, and by think I mean they've been taught that their body is some sort of currency. As a child, you probably got sweets. As a child, you probably saved your family if your molester was trying to tell you, here, hurt your brothers and sisters or your mother or whatever, but it was a currency. So you've learned to use your body as a trade. Versus a woman who hasn't been molested, she doesn't view sex and relationships in that way. It doesn't mean that she won't end up being the same type of whore as the molested girl, but it does mean she'll at least think about it, maybe take a different route to it, and things like that. So I don't think it'll eradicate it, but I definitely think it'll diminish it.
I agree with that 100%. I think that might be part of the problem, but ultimately, Black people get exploited in so many different ways, not just sexually. So while, stopping the molestation should definitely happen, there are other things that also come into play as to why, like, a lot of Black women are out here, slutting it up, like,
Slutting it up. I'm
yeah.
going to use that.
I couldn't think of anything else to say. But like, as for like the illegitimacy rate, they have like they basically subsidize that, the government. So, they basically pay those women to have a bunch of children. And so that's also a part of the problem. And then again, like what Ming was saying, there are even women who haven't been molested who still are out there doing the same reckless things that a woman who does get molested does. So I think it's part of the problem, but I don't know. We would have to see if it would work, you know.
Well, I think that there's two different factors that I would speak on, and molestation is one of them. The second one would be sexual assault of any kind, because the thing is that obviously, sexual molestation, you molest a child, it impacts them and it's forever. In one way, it is kind of a kind of death, because you can't go back to the person you were prior to being molested. It does irrevocably change you. Um, and with that being said, sexual assault and rape, when you're talking about, when we think about, being molested, we think about little kids. But, we're not really thinking about, the 11 to maybe 15-year-old as much as we're thinking about the 7, 8, and 9-year-old. And I think that part of the issue is that um, a lot of our families, unfortunately, it's a cyclical thing. So if you were to take away molestation right now, let's say, it wouldn't change anything, because yeah, there's modeling behavior, for example. If you were to take away molestation now and look at 3 generations later, and so you have 3 generations worth of women who had never been exposed to any type of molestation or sexual assault, sexual abuse of any kind, then that's where I think that you would actually see a major change and a major difference. Because um, with that being said, if you are protected and you are in families who protect you from such things, it's not the type of thing you sweep under the rug. You don't see women who know something's messed up about the way their man looks at their kid, but she needs a man to stay around, or et cetera, et cetera. Or, well, that's Uncle so and so, and you don't talk to the cops, or whatever. If you didn't see those types of things, and that type of behavior, that type of secrecy, that type of shame wasn't being built into our women from the time that they have like actual concrete memories, 6, 7, 8 years old, then you would see them actually looking at, sex and their sexuality as something more than, as the lady said, a currency, a way of getting people to be nice to you, a way of getting your own way. Because that's the thing as well, as with molestation, with abuse of any kind, normally there is some type of payoff thereafter. And I don't mean payoff as in benefit, I mean payoff as in, I'm going to take you to Wonderland now so that way you keep your mouth shut. I'm going to let you have those candy pops you're always asking for. That way you keep your mouth shut. I'm going to actually smile at you and hug you, because, that way you keep your mouth shut. So in that way, we're kind of being taught that in order for you to have people be nice to you, especially men, be nice to you or care about you or show you that you're valuable, then this is the way to get by it. And you don't learn that sex and sexuality can be something pleasurable, that's something fun, that's something that is actually for your pleasure and for your involvement as well. You kind of learn that it's men. This is what men like, this is what men do, and whatever. And you can just you can get it done. You can get through it. You can go through the motions, right? So I do think that we would probably have to look at all forms of sexual assault and abuse, and not have those things being accepted and brushed under the rug, and having us being told that, well, basically it's okay because you actually do get a lot of that. I mean, even in Jamaica, a lot of girls that I know that got sent up here as children, or families were slowly sending for the kids, and the girls got sent for first, including my own mother, including my own best friend, got sent up here. Why? Because some uncle, someone was either looking at them in that way and they knew that it was only a matter of time, or they were already assaulted. But you know what? You don't call the police. You don't, beat the living hell out of that guy and send him off to banishment. You send the girls away. So the girls are being taught, even in that, even when they're being protected in this hush hush kind of way, they're being taught that it's their shame. They must have done something wrong. And what do you do when there's nothing you can do about it? You might as well trade on it, right? So I do, unlike the Ming and Katz, I do honestly think that if you were to account for all sexual forward a few generations, yeah, I do think it would make a major, major difference.
Lady Kendra, welcome.
Thank you, and good evening to all. I did hear the question, and I believe that if we were to curb, or as much as possible, the molestations that go on in these households with the boys and the girls, because the boys often get ignored, especially if his assaulter is a female. Somehow that's looked upon as him scoring, but it isn't. It is a rape. It is a molestation to him, and it damages him just as well as a female being molested also. That is where a lot of the Black woman attitude come from. It comes from unresolved trauma. Not even always just sexual molestation, but we'll keep it there since that's the question. This is where we get a lot of babies and child support and running you through the courts and running to the aid office with your children from a young age. It's not because she wants to have these children. It isn't even because she has some malice against men necessarily. What she's doing is she's using that as a ticket to get away from the place where she's being assaulted all the time. And there's no faster way to get out of your mama's house, your uncle's house, your dad, wherever you being molested. There's no faster way for a female to do that than to have a kid. And then go to get under all of these government programs that are going to set her up financially, at least in some way. She's going to be able to get WIC. She's going to be able to get food stamps, possibly some money. And if she's too young, if she's below 18 and can't sign for her own apartment or something like that, she will get some boyfriend or whomever and she'll move with him, and she'll probably have his kid too. And, she'll put in on the food because she got stamps and this, that, and the third. And his treatment of her will be something that she just takes, whether he treats her bad overtly or whether he just kind of is neglectful of her because the relationship is not really real. You know what I'm saying? It's based on some form of mutual benefit, but not any caring about each other or anything like that. She's using what she has, the only thing that she's been taught that she has, because she's too young to have developed other traits as a female. Um, she's using what she has to get by in the world. And a lot of times it makes her callous. It makes her not care who she has to step over or who she has to hurt. So she doesn't really care that, she's dragging the baby father through court to get child support. She don't care. She's just trying to get out of whatever situation she was in and keep and then maintain it is what she's trying to do. Now, that's not everybody. Obviously, there are some women out there who are just vindictive like that and they just want to do it. But, for the victims who are victims as children, just like I brought this up before, the young lady on a year or so, 2 years or whatever, who was being beaten outside by her mother because she dared to tell that the grandmother's boyfriend was raping her every day. And so they beat her. Now what is she gonna do? She's like 14 or 15. The first thing she gonna do is have a kid or run the street. And if she run the street, she gonna have sex and she gonna have a kid. You know what I'm saying? That's just the way it is. And with boys, a lot of times you get him, he's sexually reckless. And for him, sex is not something that he does with women, it's something he does to them. Especially, I think now, I don't know if there's any study or numbers that would back this up, but I'm feeling like if his attacker was a female and then he goes out and is super promiscuous and womanizing to women, that's his way of like revenge by proxy. I can't get her back, but I can punish these other females. You know what I'm saying? Now, they don't know why they're getting treated like this, but I do. You know what I'm saying? I'm having sex to her. I'm screwing her. You know what I'm saying? I'm making her, suck me off. I'm making her do, you know what I'm saying? If there's no attachment to it, there's no emotion to it, not any positive emotion. He's acting it out. He's acting out aggressively towards her, but just in a sexual manner. And he's not raping her. This is consensual. But for him, he's exerting his will over her. You know what I'm saying? She's now in a position where, he can kind of dominate her sexually. Again, this is not rape that I'm describing. This is just him being a whoremonger. You know what I'm saying? Going through all these women, and this is just what he's doing. So I think if we were to address in the Black community molestation and stop saving the molester, because we do that a lot, I think a lot of that would be cured because there would be less trauma to deal with.
Do you ladies believe that many times, maybe not a high percentage of us, but I think more than should be, I should say, of us within Black society, we are defined, or should I say we define ourselves based on our sexuality or our sexual organs. Do you ladies believe that that's true? That, often men they don't think they're worth any more than their penis. Girls think they're not worth any more than their vagina. What you ladies take on that?
I think there is some truth to that because with Black people, the first thing we want to talk about. Like, if we get into an argument with somebody, the first thing we want to attack is somebody's sexuality. It'll be like, oh, well, that's why you gay and all that. You know what I mean? Or, if we want to threaten somebody, the first thing we want to take away is sex. Like, well, if you don't do this, then I'm not going to have sex with you. So I do think that a lot of Black people do put a major emphasis on sexuality and sex. And I think they do it because really a lot of Black people feel like very aimless, so they don't really know what else to do but that. So they're like, well, can't do this, so I'll just perfect my sex game. Yeah.
I agree with what Kat's saying. In addition to that, I feel like we have allowed ourselves to be overly sexualized by society. I mean, if we could date all the way back to when they brought the woman over and put her on display because of how big her butt, and everything else was like that. The way we've been viewed by white people have been nothing but workhorses and sex objects, That's all we've been known to be good for. And I think that we've kind of internalized that in our spirit a little bit, and unbeknownst to us, because we don't even realize that we're doing it, you're passing it down further and further. Even if you're not getting it from your parents or in your household or family, you're definitely getting it from the streets. It's a big thing in our culture to have a big butt. Brenda's got a big old butt, and all that type of stuff. So we've kind of been hanging our hat on that. And I think that now that people are able to pump themselves up with all type of silicone and all these other things, and these white girls are coming out with hips and ass too, now it's going to push our people to have to rely on something else other than our body, because it no longer sets us apart, if you want to be honest. That's been the thing that we've been able, I guess, to hang our hat on, is that as Black women, we're shapely. We have all the hips and the ass. We're Coke bottles. But that's no longer the case. First of all, for the Black community, but then second of all, because so are all the other races and cultures and ethnicities too. So now we're going to be forced, once the currency of our body runs out, to have to start using our brain or some sort of skill set in order to get by and differentiate ourselves from everybody else. But 100%. I think that we have put way too much value on our bodies. And I'm on the outside looking in, because growing up, that's never been something I put my value on. I'm hiply, I'm built kind of with the bottom half and the butt. And then sometimes I will find myself getting embarrassed a little bit. Like if I go into a work situation, because if I put on some slacks, I'm going to look way different than the white girl standing next to me. You know what I mean? And I will find myself trying to buy stuff to cover my butt up, or a long, blazer or something to cover it up, so that I'm not sexualized. And I don't have no choice. This is the way I'm built. It's genetic. My grandmother still looked like a Coke bottle. But I found myself having almost like guilt about it too. So it's a weird thing that we're feeling on the inside, So
I think I. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You probably can help me get them words, because I can't get the words, but I know what I'm feeling.
I'm in complete agreement. We've placed a lot of value on that, because that has replaced what manhood and womanhood is supposed to be. Because we don't have definitions for that. We have not defined it. We have tried to allow, or we have unwittingly allowed, the dominant society to define femininity and womanhood, and also manhood for us. So, but it doesn't completely jive with who we are. So there's an expectation that sometimes we can't meet. And actually, BGS talks about this, the myth of white womanhood. It basically, to sum that up, is a Black woman's aspiration to what has been defined for her as femininity, but she doesn't fit that mold. And since she doesn't quite fit that mold, she does not find value in her own femininity because she can't define it. It hasn't been defined. So since she can't achieve a Eurocentric standard of beauty, or she can't achieve um, this sort of mythical status of supreme womanhood, she can't do it. So now, like Ming was saying, the currency, well, them white girls ain't got nothing on my body. you know you know I'm built like a Coke bottle, and she's built like a surfboard. You know what I'm saying? But, with the advent of plastic surgeries and all these different outpatient procedures, and you ain't even got to really be under a knife all that long to come out with a butt. They doing fix a flat booties in hotels now at this point, to get a ass. And you got the Kardashians running around, and they built like, what I'm saying, they being glorified for being built like how Keisha and Tanisha been built in the hood forever. She been looking like that. You know what I'm saying? So, now that like Ming was saying, that's no longer special. Now what? Now what's your womanhood? Because, they can look to whomever else on TV and Love and Hip Hop and this, that, and the third, and go to the strip joint and see a big ass and a little waist and, titties, and hope that they look proportionate. So now, you don't have anything else. And so now when we take that away, you don't have the attitude of a traditional female due to so many different factors. You're angry, you're rebellious, and you've got all of these different issues, internal issues, that once I strip away your beauty or what passes for your beauty, there's nothing left. And this is actually the same for men, and now they're not going out getting fix a flat asses, but they are trying to compete with one another with how many bad bitches they can slay. You know what I'm saying? And you will have a man running around here who has had success in every other area. Low deep down, if he feel like he ain't slayed enough bitches, he mad. Like, he low key mad about that. You know what I'm saying? He feels some type of way that he can't get whatever woman, or he hasn't been able to get her, or whatever the case may be. So he's measuring his manhood on how many women he has had sex with, when that doesn't define manhood. That doesn't define no more than, what I'm saying, me getting a fix a flat ass defines womanhood for me. Because truth be told, I'm one of them ghetto chicks, and I ain't never had no big ass. It was weird, because how you a hood chick but you ain't got no ass. But thanks, mom. So, those things don't define it, and since we don't have a definition, we're lost.
Well, I think that, and for me, because I'm looking from a slightly different perspective, I gotta say, I think that this particular issue of defining yourself by your body parts isn't just a Black issue. It is a generational issue, especially in the millennials. It has gotten considerably worse. But as usual, Black people are, canary in the coal mine syndrome. So it's going to hit us harder and faster. You're going to see the detrimental result in our community much more glaringly, much more quickly than you will in other communities. Now, with that being said, when I think about my being in middle school, and I remember, hitting middle school, and suddenly there was this whole thing about, is your poom poom fat? I didn't know what that meant. And guys would say it to me, like I'd be sitting like on the floor, like, with my back against the wall. Some guy would say it to me. I'm not even wearing tight jeans, and I would cross my legs because that was so embarrassing to me. I don't know what it means. You're saying it's a good thing, but I don't know what it means. Or talking about, girls with that one has sagging boobs. No girl at 13 has sagging boobs. I don't care how big they are. They're just not. But, I didn't know what it means. She certainly didn't know what it means. None of us knew what it meant. So got to get, the more expensive bra, something that's going to lift and this and that and whatever, because, you can't have sagging boobs. And then, it was like, it was literally a matter of, I knew all the things that could be wrong with my vagina, or my breasts or whatever before I really had breasts and before I really had any concept of what any of these things mean. And to be honest with you, there's still some of them not 100% sure what people meant by them. So with that being said, I can certainly imagine that. And I didn't live and I didn't have the experience where I was, having certain behaviors modeled for me and whatever. So I had been told, long before I got to middle school, how special and precious and valuable I was. So, lucky for me, I wasn't going to start trading on those things, but I can entirely understand how, it's a matter of even without my mother being that negative force in my life, it consistently ran me about me having a flat ass or not, about me having the right shape or not. I was consistently aware of not only my parts, I was consistently aware of male parts and what size penis and what thickness or this or that, or if it curves or not. What I'd never even seen one, but I knew apparently what I was supposed to be looking for or not. And you know damn sure that means the guys knew as well. So on so many levels, this was no longer about were you a good woman or not, was he a good guy or not, did he treat you well, did he love you, and I mean actually love you, did he value you, did he support you? Had nothing to do with any of that. It was at the end of the day, but did you guys get to third base or whatever, and what did it look like, and how big was it, and this and that. Oh, don't sleep with that guy. Come on, he's only like this, or and I mean, these things really went around, and we didn't even understand the value of thickness or length or this or that. We're talking about things that don't mean anything to us, and we're evaluating ourselves based on things that mean nothing to us. I mean, to the point where I can still look. I have a very long torso. So I could still look at, in myself in the mirror and be like, well, I don't know. What point do my boobs have to get down to where they officially qualify as sagging? Like I don't know, but I do know that that's such a terrible thing. And a lot of my self-worth is built up on this idea that, do I still have a young body? Do I still look younger than my age? Because I'm light skinned, I've got white blood in me. So am I going to get the black don't crack thing, or am I not? And like it's such a confusing thing, for me as a woman now at 33 years old. So when I go back 20 years and I think about what was happening then, and how terrifying and confusing it was then, and then I think about my sister's generation, where that's just 10 years later, and there, if we were defining everybody and everything based on their body parts, my sister's generation was a million times worse. And so I think about it and I'm like, yeah, I definitely think that we have no idea how to value ourselves outside of that. And even when our parents are doing everything right, ultimately we are literally programmed to let go of our parents and start caring about our peer groups and what our peer groups are having to say around the time of puberty. We're programmed that way. So it doesn't matter. To a certain extent, our parents kind of fortify us, but we go out there in the real world and our peers let us know what our value is based on, normally these days, especially on your body parts. What are your lips like? What are your this like? What are your that like? Especially your sexual organs. You might not have had sex yet, and you might wonder whether or not you have walls. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't mean a lot of things to a lot of people. They just know that they got to have them. Right. So, and they have no idea how to determine whether or not they have walls, whether there's a lot of guys who don't really know what that means either. So I think that the biggest problem is not only are we defining ourselves by these parts, but oftentimes we don't even understand the definitions that we're using to put each other and ourselves down with these parts.
Well, to me, and I'm talking about black folks because we're black. It seems often, and I want to touch on something that all of you ladies said, but before I do that, I need you people. You see that button down there? You see that button down there? The one right under the watching now. There's a button that does this. Yeah, it does this. I need you to hit that button, because y'all know I hate when the watch numbers exceed the like numbers. For Christ's sakes, If you're in here, you gotta like something. If you don't like my black ass, you gotta at least like these ladies here that you see on the panel. All right. So move that hand over slowly, nice and slow. I'll guide you through it. Move that hand nice and slowly with that mouse. Get it right over that button that goes like this and go click, and you're done. See how easy that was? Anyway, I was gonna say it's a shame that we as black people, we receive even when we don't receive any formal education in the conventional sense, even when we don't receive any education from the people who rear and raise us. Isn't it funny how we all seem to gain a sexual education? We all seem to know what our penis does. We know what our vagina does, but we have no clue on how to use it responsibly. We have no clue, like you ladies said, in valuing ourselves outside of that. And it's a sad state of affairs, because I truly believe that if people in black society, if we had 25%, if we had a 25% decrease of sexual irresponsibility, I think we would see the changes in black society like immediately. We would see the changes in like 10 to 20 years. We would see that difference if we just had a little more sexual responsibility. Because what would sexual responsibility look like? Sexual responsibility would mean brothers with 15 baby mamas may only have one baby mama. Women with 6 and 7 and 8 baby daddies may only have one or two, and so on and so forth. And not only that, if we were more sexually responsible, if there was more sexual responsibility, possibly, just possibly, we would have more committed unions. When I had Brother Obsidian on the stream a few weeks back, and me and him, we went back and forth about because he believes that black people's biggest problem is black women and black men don't get along. And of course, I disagree. I believe that education is one of the major factors, and not the education that you may think, not universities and schools and colleges. No. Because see, there's a lot of uneducated people who have attended these institutions. When I talk about education, I talk about being educated in the matters of life, in the school of hard knocks, where you have a mother and or a father who teaches you not only to be civil, social, honorable, respectable, and have integrity, desire, ambition, but also to teach you to be responsible with your sexual organs, to teach young men to make sure that they're not squirting babies in women that they have no intention on marrying, to teach young women to maybe not be so sexually promiscuous and make sure brothers aren't squirting babies in you when they have no intention on marrying you or are married to you. This is the type of education I'm talking about when I say education would fix black society in a great way. Would it fix everything? Of course not, but it would help. It would make a dent, and the dent would be big. Because if we have more people who are more sexually responsible, we probably wouldn't have as many illegitimate kids running around. We wouldn't have as much poverty and despair. We would have more families, I believe, because men could go to women and say, "Hey, look, girl, you and I are not having kids until we get our shit together, until we get married, until we have a house, until we have a car, until we have jobs, until we have whatever." And likewise, women would say, "Hey, look, man, I like you. I want to be with you. I want to give you some. I want to do all that. But if you're going to squirt some babies in here, number one, we need to be married, Negro. Number two, we need to have our own house, our own car, our own money, our own everything. Then I will just let you incubate at will." See, those conversations would be happening if more of our young folks were educated. And when I say educated, I say again, educated in life. Because, see, my definition of education, and I've said this on this platform many times before, my definition of education has nothing to do with schools and colleges and universities. My definition of education is you become educated when you go from unaware to aware of your own ignorance about people, places, things, life, and your damn self. Now you're educated. Um, Let me ask you ladies this before we get to the old triple X hour. Uh, when you think about us as a people, who do you think is more to blame for the over sexualization of black folks? Do you think it's men? Do you think it's our women? Or do you think it's outside forces?
I'm gonna
Oh,
say,
go ahead.
I think it's more outside forces because the thing is with black people, we like to consume a lot of media, and so a lot of what the media puts out there is that all black men are rapists, or if they're not rapists, they have the big penis myth, and then for black women, it's, well, all black women are whores. So I think a lot of black people who consume media and they let their children watch this stuff, they without monitoring them, they end up feeding into a lot of the images that the media gives to us. So, we might be at fault for some of it, like both black men and black women, but I think it's mostly outside forces because, that's the propaganda they want us to see.
Mm.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said earlier, I think it's others. Dating back to, using the women as sex objects and using the men as bulls, same way, sexualizing the men too. And I think that we've just adopted it as part of who we are and made it our own. Even though we should have rejected that premise and then move forward from there. But instead, we adopted it and allowed them, as with other things, allowed them to dictate how we view ourselves. And now we're seeing the fallout from that right now. I'm sure we've seen it over the years, but in my lifetime, this is the most whoring I've ever seen in my life. You know, or the total disregard for your body and everybody else's body. I mean, this is in my 39 years, this is the worst I've ever seen it. So I blame outside forces, and then secondarily, I blame us because we can't continue to allow others to define us. At some point, like you said, you have to become aware and start defining yourself. So that's the long and short of it.
I agree.
Well, I don't know that I can say, well, the men did it. I know the women did it. We have been subjugated as a people. So therefore, we have been following whatever the dominant society says and what they've dictated. We have not been able to dictate media propaganda because we don't own it. We have not been able to control the educational system because we don't own it. We have not been able to um, control any of the major factors of our living in this society. In many ways, we do not control our own destiny, quote unquote. Um, and I said that to say this. We have always been objectified by the dominant group. And since we suffer from Stockholm syndrome, we have we have internalized that viewpoint. And so when um, the sexual revolution and sexual freedom and women's lib and all of this other stuff came sweeping through the dominant society, we picked up on it and we did it too. It had nothing to do with us. That was not that was not our plight at all. But we took up the cause, massa, we sick, that kind of stuff, we subjugated that. So we did that. And we're paying for it because men have always liked the way women looked. They've always liked a nice body and, she young and she looks sexy and all of this kind of stuff. But, we used to have a moral code that we were going by, a code that worked for us. When you wanted a woman that was going to be your wife and going to be the bearer of your children, you had to court her. You had to come see about her. She had a family that you had to talk to. You had to talk to her dad. You had to go through like the family to get to her. She wasn't just accessible all out here by herself. And as men, that made men accountable to other men. Because if I'm a man and I'm trying to court Mr. Johnson's daughter, I got to talk to Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Johnson is sussing me out because he's a man, and oftentimes he's an older man, and he know what young men bullshit look like, and he's gonna suss it out for his daughter because nobody's good enough for his daughter, But you might be, if he could talk to you and all of that kind of stuff. What it reminds me of. And it may and may not have been that extensive in each case, but it reminds me of anybody's ever watched The Godfather, the first one. When Michael goes to Italy, he goes to the old country, and he sees that young lady and he wants to marry her. He doesn't go up and talk to that young lady. He ends up finding her father, and he talks to him about his daughter, and he has to make his intentions very clear that he wants to marry her, not just screw her and leave her with a little baby when he go back to America. Okay, so when he courted her, the family was present. He didn't have time to race off to a corner and get some real quick and all of this other kind of foolishness, because there will always be whores. You can get some from some other woman, but if you wanted one that was going to be your wife and she was going to be the woman that was going to have your kids, you had to do something different to get her. And the destruction of the family unit has destroyed that. It is no longer even accessible to go talk to a young woman's father, because who's her daddy? Where her daddy at? And if you do find him, is he anybody to be judging you on what you doing? You get that rare occasion where he is able to do it. You know what I'm saying? He is in a position to kind of tell the young man, nah, you can't be around mine. You can't get mine. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there are a few left, but not in the numbers that they were before. You know what I'm saying? We're not a community like we were before. Nobody's looking out. Everybody's out for self. I'm out to get mine and all that kind of stuff. And now, goes back to the promiscuity. So
Okay, well, the way I see it is this, that outside forces are obviously going to be at work here because you cannot blame men or women as individual people or even as an individual gender for, because I mean, you have the big forces, whether it's media, products, big pharma, big whatever, that are going to be pushing society to go in a particular direction, ultimately for them to make money, ultimately from either a political standpoint, from a sales standpoint, marketing standpoint, whatever. But I do think that ultimately, then when we start looking at the individual genders and the individual people, the thing is that we have always kind of put it on like women should keep their legs closed because men are men. And I do think that ultimately that worked out okay, as long as, the outside forces kind of wanted it that way for the most part. They wanted women to keep their legs closed. They wanted women to not be promiscuous. Uh, so it worked out okay in that way. You teach your little girls that, you teach them that men are only out for one thing and men get to try to be out for only one thing. And if they luck out and they find themselves a girl from the wrong side of the tracks or a girl that's willing to give it up, fantastic. And you know what? If she says no enough times, okay, I guess she was a good girl. The problem is now is that it is really still on women to keep their legs closed, and men get to be men. And so they get to try to sleep with anyone and anything at any time. And if the girl spread her legs, oh wow, well, I guess that was, she's, a whore, and being a whore these days is actually a good thing. So, her body count's got to be up. She's got to be able to this and that. What would she do for the D? These are all now normal things. And I think that it's a twofold problem because on some level, and I've said this before and I've gotten, a little bit of pushback, but I do think men need to be somewhat aware and responsible and care about what they are sticking their private parts into and who. And, because at the end of the day, it's not just about diseases or anything like that. It's about at the end of the day that what we are doing is women are literally from teaching their peers to teaching their children and whatever, that some guy should be able to look at you or smile at you, maybe throw some cash your way, and you open your legs, and that's what your value is. And men are being taught that, the conquest that they should be looking for is, conquering this woman, being able to stick it in her. That's about it. Being able to shoot it in her. Oh, I don't have to use a condom with that one because she's a good girl. And then, oops, well, there's a baby coming. Well, look how virile I am. Look how masculine I am because I can, and so we start changing our definitions about what makes a good man and a good woman. And as Kendra said, we don't have definitions of, what real femininity is or what real masculinity is without sex. So as a result, it's like, sure, are the outside forces working? Absolutely, they are. But on a smaller level, I literally blame both sexes for what's going on right now and for this kind of thoughtism and this whorishness that is ongoing because we literally are proud of it. We are proud of the 5 kids we have by 3 baby mamas or the 6 kids and all of my baby daddies take care of their kids. And that's a normal statement to us. All of my baby mamas, all of my baby daddies. And you can be proud of the way that all your baby mamas and baby daddies worked, or you can feel special inside that you're the baby mama and he loves his baby mama and he'll never let her go. So I really do think that it's a whole, and we can't change what the outside forces are doing. But I've heard Cerulean talk a lot about organization, and on so many levels, that's what we need to do. Is we need to stop being prey to what the outside forces are doing. We need to start taking individual accountability for our men and for our women, and we need to get together and we need to reestablish codes of respect and of conduct, given the fact that we don't have things like the old system where fathers protect their children or their daughters, and fathers are teaching men how to be men. We need to find another way, because ultimately, if we don't take the responsibility for our men and our women in our community, the outside forces are going to keep preying on us because it benefits them. Period. Point blank.
Agreed. Agreed. I agree with all of you ladies. What I don't agree with is the damn like numbers. Yeah, I don't agree with these like numbers that I see right now, because once again, the watch numbers have exceeded the like numbers. Come on, don't make me guide you through it again. Don't make me guide you through it. Cuz take that mouse, get over that button, and when that goes like this, and click it. All it takes is there you go. There you go. I see you doing it. I'm watching you. When you come in the door, at least click the like button. And those of you that are in here right now, if you haven't clicked the like button, for Christ's sakes, go ahead and click that like button. That doesn't cost you anything. And if you're feeling generous, all you got to do is look up on that old, right there on the old side there, and you'll see the links right there. See them right there? See them? See my thumb pointing? See where my thumb is pointing? Right where my thumb is pointing, you will find the links if you're feeling generous tonight. All right? If you're feeling generous, drop a few coins in the bucket. I got the PayPal stream. I got the PayPal link up there and the Streamlabs link. Plus, my mods are constantly posting them. So if you don't want to donate a like, for Christ's sakes, I will forgive you for not donating a like if you put some coins in the bucket. If you're not going to put no coins in the bucket, at least put a like in the bucket. Thank you, audience. I appreciate it. Now then, before we continue, I must say this disclaimer. The following part of this program is going to be rated R and possibly X. So it's not suitable for young children. So I advise you to put all children watching to bed, because now is the witching hour. Now we get into triple X. Now, I was sitting back thinking about Thursday, and I said, damn, I said, I'm going to ask the ladies some questions that they may or may not want to answer, but I'm going to ask them anyway. So now that we're at the second hour of the show, let me ask you ladies this. Now, all of you, I'm quite sure nobody on this panel is a virgin, right? So, you ladies, what do you think when between men and women? Because I know there's a lot of sexual standoff between men and women. That's just a fact, okay? Because we as Black people, we're over sexualized, but I don't believe we're overly sexual experienced. Some of us are, but I believe a lot of us are not. So let's start here. When you ladies think about a man, what do you prefer to be in a man's package when he's coming to you in a sexual way? What should he bring to the table sexually for you? Whoever wants to go first can.
Well, I hope he brings some motion in the ocean. You know, that's what he has to do sexually first. Bring a little flavor. He also has to be selfless. Can't deal with no selfish lover. You know, um, I prefer an experienced person more so than an inexperienced person. Preferably, I'm an Aries, so we like to have fun in the bedroom, to put it lightly. Um, in terms of what his body shape or figure and things like that look like, I'm not necessarily too caught up on that. My husband is fluffy and I love it. But all those things I said that I need, I have. So that's pretty much it, I guess. And I hope I'm answering it correctly. Like I'm answering what you're looking for.
There is no wrong answers.
Okay.
Next.
Um, man. Now, I guess for me to be turned on or attracted, if I like him for who he is and I'm really feeling him, I'm already gonna be attracted. I'm already gonna be turned on anyways. Um, as far as the deed itself, um, I have to agree with one point that Ming said, no selfishness. Because I'm looking not only to have fun myself, but to make sure that he's enjoying himself. You know what I'm saying? No, no bump on the log sex, disinterested sex, I'm playing on my cell phone sex and all of that craziness, because if I feel like I ain't doing my job, if you can be distracted by something else, it's no bueno. This is no good. That I'm failing. This is a fail on my end because you should be so enraptured with what I'm doing that you can't pay attention to anything else. If your man ain't got that look on his face like, who are you and what are you doing to me? This is probably not all that good. Um, that's about it. Give me some promise of power. I don't want no 2-minute man like Missy Elliott said, and all that kind of stuff. Now, a quickie is fine sometimes. Sometimes I want to get right to it. We don't have to make this a Olympic event all the time. But I just want a happy ending, pretty much.
Oh, well, I would prefer somebody with some experience because I'm fairly new. Like, I've only had one other partner, like one partner, so yeah, still learning. So, yeah, somebody with experience, basically.
Well, for me, it's all about somebody who listens and is responsive to me. Because I don't really think it matters. Like, I slept with someone who was literally a virgin before they slept with me, did not tell me that until afterwards. Dated him for months before we slept together, and I had no idea he was a virgin. He did a lot of studying, though, and more importantly, he was responsive to me and what I was saying. So, someone who can actually take that direction, not assume that my body and my likes or dislikes are exactly the same as someone else's, because what worked for XYZ person might not work for me at all. And me telling you, I don't like that, and then you saying, well, my last girlfriend liked it, isn't really helpful for me. So I need someone that is number one on my list, because if you're responsive to me, you take direction well, and you're wanting to work with me for what I like and what I want and what I need. That's the type of person that I am as well. So I think that will overall make the best sexual experience for both of us.
Hmm. Well, let me ask you ladies this. Are there any things as far as women go, a woman's body that you share similarly? And when I say that, are there certain things that a man can do to any woman and she will respond?
I think so. I think breast stimulation. I think I hope the ladies agree that messing with her nipple stimulation, most women should respond to that. That's what I would think.
You know what? Again, I'm gonna say, because I kind of agree on one side with Ming, like to say, like, yeah, there are certain things. clit stimulation, nipple stimulation, but it's not about where. The thing is that in general we have erogenous zones. There are places on our body that feel sexually good. I mean, even you say neck or ears or the inner thigh will feel good, but I think that each woman might need something different in order for that to feel good. So maybe some women like something harder or softer. Some women might like biting or nibbling, and some women only like licking and whatever. So I think it's kind of like, and some women like when you go right for, go right for it, and other women like a slow buildup, soft touching in the thighs or the lower stomach first before you go for their clit. So I think that that is where you will see differences one way or the other. Is not the where, but the how.
Next.
I can agree with that. Basically, that's it for me.
Poor cats.
Um, well, let me ask you ladies this. Big penis, medium sized penis, small penis, long penis, fat penis.
I'm gonna tell you, the worst penis is a long, skinny one. You might as well just stick a stick up your vagina. Horrible. Uh,
Yeah.
Me personally, I'm a medium to large type of person, and I appreciate girth because I like sex. Yeah, of course, everybody likes, some people like cunnilingus, but I really prefer sex. You didn't do that for a while, whatever, yeah, yeah, yeah. But let's get to the sex. So for me, yeah, it has to be medium, large with some girth. That long, skinny shit, you can keep that.
I gotta agree. I gotta agree. I'm sorry, but really skinny, and I don't care about length. And this is where I think it's hilarious. It's like, oh, 12 inches, 12 inches, or whatever. Like, if you don't have girth, then it doesn't matter how long it is. And I understand we had this discussion before, and I just gotta say, like, um, the thing is that most of your sensation in your vagina is in the first 3, maybe 4 inches. So ultimately, at the end of the day, any longer than that is kind of overkill. So getting 6, 7, 8 inches is more than enough. First of all, your vagina is only so long anyway. So it's not really so much of length because, like I said, all of your sensation is in the first 3 to 4 inches of your vagina max. Girth is the thing. Girth is king. I gotta say, at the end of the day, I mean, too thick and I mean, I know people who literally tear open their wives that they've been with for 10, 15, 20 years every time they sleep with them because they're just too thick. Um, but too thin, and again, you're not really going to be touching much, and so it's not really going to do much for you. So I would say girth, a little bit of girth. You got to have a fair size, a fair amount of thickness.
Hmm.
Well,
I'm sensing a consensus here.
I have to agree with me. That long, skinny sword, you're not gonna stab my uterus. I want my uterus. It may not have bore children, but I want it. It's a part of me. I was born with it, and I'd like to die with it if I can, sir. Thank you, sir. Um, he don't got to be all that 12-inch. I don't know who they screwing. I have walls, so I have them. I've maintained them. I don't, it's not, my husband never had to throw a tic tac down a hallway. He just never did. So, all of that huge, humongous, all that, I don't need all that kind of stuff. Just give me a regular, a little girth, a little length, I don't want no 4 inches or nothing, because that ain't really helping me. But, enough to get me going, and enough that if you have some motion to it, it helps me. Like, I don't need to be asking whether or wondering whether or not you actually got it in there and all that kind of stuff. I, you know, I need just regular. That's fine by me. I don't need no super monster, no monster D, and all that kind of stuff. I don't, I'm not a size queen. I'm not a porn star. I don't need all that.
Okay. Word to the wise. If you're hollering at Lady Kendra, you don't have to have a supersized penis. um, let
You
me
wrong as hell for that. How you gonna get that
just letting you brothers know that she doesn't require you have a supersized penis. Um, what do you ladies think about, because we know sex is an intricate part of a relationship. What's you ladies take on a sexless relationship, a relationship that has very little sex?
Before in my 20s, even early 30s, I would have a different response than now. But now having small children, 4 and 5, also having fibromyalgia and stuff like that, the emphasis on sex is not as great as it would have been prior to those things. I don't think um, a sexless relationship is good. But I do think that sometimes, if there is some time in between the first and the second act, that it does make the heart grow fonder, and it also intensifies that next time you're together. So long as this isn't some, extended amount of period, and is also not a pattern of behavior either. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But I will say that when you have a full load or plate, sex don't always be at the top, not all the time, but so you kind of have to work around it, or try to sneak it in, or maybe I should say good sex is not always at the top, because sometimes you got to try to sneak it in, do it quickly or whatever. You might not be able to do it as often, so there's that. But if you're just an asexual type of person, I think that's a problem.
Well,
Well,
oh, go ahead, Kat.
okay. So being in my early 20s, I'll say I wouldn't mind that, just personally speaking.
So zero would be fine for you. Zero penetration would be fine for you.
I mean, done it before.
Yeah, but for how long? But for how long would you tolerate that? Like, how long would you go along with that?
Maybe a couple of months. I don't know.
A couple of months. I
Well,
don't believe you.
Kat is still new. Give her a little while. But so here's my thing. Having chronic pain and chronic illness and surgeries and this and that and whatever. I mean, literally, it changes your perspective on a scale of 1 to 10 how important sex and sexuality is. Because if you don't already have other means of to show, I guess, your um, love or attraction or just bond with the other person, and suddenly you aren't able to communicate sexually, which honestly it is a form of communication to me, then things will fall apart entirely because you have nothing else holding you together. So now, with that being said, I do think that it matters. Like, why is there a sexless relationship, and what does the relationship look like otherwise? Because if you have a sexless relationship, but there's also no other forms of intimacy. There's no other forms of bonding and sharing. There's no discussion of what you may want to do one day when you finally can, or whatever, because you're not bonded that way. That to me is a problem, because that is at the point then where you've lost intimacy with one another. And I think intimacy is a lot more important than the actual physical act itself. Being too tired or being too stressed out, or being in a position where you're in too much pain, like me injuring my back and not being able to do anything for like over 90 days. I made sure to tell everyone all about it because it was just like, oh, I'm so stressed out here, I can't. But at the end of the day, that things like that can happen. And so it comes down to, if the relationship you're in can't withstand not having sex, because that is the only way in which you guys are bonded and intimate, and that is the only thing that's keeping you together, I think that that is a bigger problem. But that being said, if you did have a healthy, happy sex life and then suddenly it's gone, and not only gone with the sex life is the intimacy, then it's basically letting you know that, I mean, this relationship is damn near dead. You got to do something to try to rebond with one another, even if it's not initially on a sexual level. You need to rebond on an intimate level, on a sharing level, on physical intimacy level, so that way you can kind of get that desire sparked between the two of you again.
What, thumb wrestling? Maybe you two should thumb wrestle more often.
Thumb wrestling, Indian leg wrestling. No.
Yeah.
Honestly, sometimes it's as simple. I remember when we did the marriage counseling thing, and there were a couple of people who had been married for a long time. It was kind of like a group class, and they were there. And so I remember one of the ladies was talking about with her husband how for them rekindling intimacy, it looked like him wanting to grab her hand in public. Like, this is my woman. I want to hold her hand while we're walking down the street. And, that's something that they had just lost along the way between the kids and the life and the house and this. It's just something they didn't do anymore. They didn't hold each other's hands. They might hold the kids' hands. They might be holding something in their hands. They might be holding their phones, but they didn't hold each other's hands. And that was something that all of a sudden her husband started doing again. And it would make her blush and giggle and feel kind of all womanly that he wanted to hold her hand in public again. Something so simple that, was bonding them together, and they didn't realize they had let it go. So that's what I mean. Like, it's little things. Sometimes it's just the little things. You let go of them one by one, and before you know it, there's just no more physical intimacy or bond between you.
Okay, so was the question if we would G for a sexless marriage?
Yes.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. And to be completely honest, in my marriage, there were lulls, but there was not any time where it was like, well, there's no more sex for us going forward. You want to watch TV? Yeah, I think I watch TV. What you want to watch? I don't know, Gunsmoke. I mean, that didn't happen. I'm not going to rock with you in no completely sexless marriage. There's not enough intimate touching and soft-spoken words that are going to help me after a while. It's like, okay, so I just can't get nothing out of this, huh? Because, and then why is it sexless? Are one or both of us unable to have sex? Or are we just, roomies now? If I have a functioning reproductive system, I would like to use it at some point. Now, no, that's the short and long of that. No sexless marriages. I'm your friend zone at this point. We're friend zoned. No.
Like you said, roommate.
Yeah. We're roommates.
Another public service announcement for brothers in the Chicago area. If you're hollering at Lady Kendra, you must be willing to have some sex. There will be, if you're a brother who does not like sex, do not apply.
If you don't stop these public service announcements coming out to Chicago, I swear I'm going to find you and I am going to wring your neck.
Apply, brothers. Just do not waste Lady Kendra's time if you're a person who does not have a sexy, healthy, sexy appetite. Do not waste Lady Kendra's time. All right. Okay, so y'all are not with the zero sex thing. So if you ladies like one type of sexual thing that a man does, let me ask you ladies, what do you like to do to men?
Can you clarify the question, please?
Oh, there needs no clarification. What,
I'm
what do you ladies like to do to men?
gonna let someone else go first. See how raunchy we're getting. Go ahead.
Set the bar, set the tone, Ruby.
Mm.
Oh, maybe I shouldn't be playing this music. Maybe I should be playing this. Maybe I should be playing
Me and
playing
Ruby, I'm
playing
calling on
these.
y'all because y'all are currently married. So y'all got to set the bar. I'm calling on you.
Right? I'm calling on Ming. I'll go second.
Why?
Go ahead.
Ain't that some shit? Well, okay, so what do I like to do to my husband? Now, my husband's erotic zone actually is also his chest, like his nipples. So I like, he likes that, and I don't mind doing that. If you're trying to ask us about some head, I'm gonna be honest. In full disclosure, that is not at the top of my list of priorities. But it's not out of selfishness of my own, because remember I said you giving me head is not at the top of my list of priorities. So um my husband tells me I do it very well, but I don't do it as frequently as he probably would like.
I'm sure if you're talking the old, oh well, I don't really like. Oh, I'm sure you're not doing it as much as he. I'm sure. I don't know him, but I'm sure him and I would be on an agreement on this particular matter.
But I I do it very well, and I know what he likes. He likes to have his chest stroked and his nipples and stuff like that. And me personally, I love to run my hands over my husband's head. He doesn't have long hair or locks or anything like that. It's just, to me, it's just erotic to do so. And he loves it. So don't shame me about the head part.
No
God damn.
shame. No shame.
Well, you
Well,
say, "Goddamn, you thought I was gonna go further, Ruby."
yes! Like, damn it! Be the Lord on
Gotcha.
the panel today. All right. Okay. Well, unlike Ming, my number one top favorite thing I like to do is give head. I really, really like it. Now, with that being said, out
Oh
of all the
shit! Here we go.
out of all the things that I've done with people when you talk about counts and stuff, like I've like given head to the least amount of people because to me that's like the most intimate thing to do. And it's not something that I gave away lightly. But with that being said, I really like giving head. Like I'm sorry to be a little bit triple X, but I really like dick. So I like the head, I like the shaft, I like the balls, I like everything about it. So for me, giving head probably is like my number one favorite thing to do. And I mean like a porn star, sloppy, moppy, like the whole nine. That is my favorite thing to do. So yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go back to mute myself. Go ahead. Moving
Next up.
on.
Next up.
I like kissing.
That's it. That's not it, is it? No
But
way.
that's an
That's it.
awesome answer, though, and that's the thing I should add too, because a kiss can turn the faucet on, if you understand what I'm saying.
Mm.
A kiss in and of itself, just even by itself, especially if it's a long, passionate one, oh man, that can turn the heat up even more so than anything else you can do. At least for me.
Okay.
I'm gonna keep mine very vague because this is a live recorded show with a playback. So I'll just keep it like this. The things that I like to do to my husband was anything that crossed his eyes, made his toes curl up, and made him have to step back and look at me like I don't know who you are, but whoever you are, please do that again. Can you do that again? One more again. I needed one more again. That's what I like to do.
So let me ask you ladies this. Orgasm every time or no?
For me, I better. Because what are we doing this for? That's goes without a question or an answer. That's non-negotiable. I can't even think if I've even had a time well, yeah, when you're younger, because you're dealing with the selfish younger men who fucking like jackrabbits, and you look up and it's like, we done? I haven't even came yet. You know what I'm saying? But that is a thing of the past, because like I said, I've been with my husband for 7 years, and I've come every time we ever had sex, sometimes twice. But see, and I'm also the type of person who comes, because a lot of women can't come from vaginal sex. They come from a lot of clitoral stimulation. I'm one of the ones who can come from vaginal sex. So that's probably why I don't put so much weight on oral sex, for cunnilingus or whatever for women, because I don't really need it to come.
Okay. Next up.
I haven't every time I've done it.
Okay. Next
Well,
up.
unlike Ming, I don't tend to come from vaginal intercourse. So with that being said, this is why I'm a head whore. I like getting head a lot. But now with that being said, I don't know. When I get like if I'm gonna get head, normally it's a separate experience. I like being able to like get head and go to sleep. Like I don't like it's very much about me. So if I'm gonna like I can engage in sexual like foreplay and intercourse and whatever and not make it about me coming and make it all about him coming and like his pleasure, but me having pleasure in that as well. Because I like, I like getting off on him getting off kind of thing, or him feeling really good or whatever. And I'm a submissive, so I really like, I get off on the submission aspect of it. Therefore, I get off on him getting off, and I can do that without coming. But what I'm like, because I like having a separate time where I'm getting ahead and then I don't have to worry about anything afterwards. I don't want to still be in it or have to be in it or worry about you coming now. Like I want it to be all about me. I come, I say thanks, babe, and I go to sleep. Like I do actually like being able to have that separation for me.
Very interesting.
Can I add something? Because Ruby brings up a good point.
Absolutely. Add it.
When she says about clitoral stimulation and how she loves it, too much of it can actually desensitize your ability to be able to get vaginal orgasms, because you're training your body to only orgasm if the clitoris is being stimulated. Especially for women who masturbate a lot and stuff like that, just using their hand and not a dildo or whatever, you really do change the whole sexual experience. If you lay off of it for a little while and give it a try, you'll find that you actually will come vaginally.
So let me ask you ladies this. Do you find that a man can stimulate you better than you can stimulate yourself?
It's funny you should ask that question, because
Isn't it?
it's like if you because it's like if I watch porn and then I'm talking kind of low because my husband got a friend over and they moving something out. Let me make sure they going downstairs while I say this part. Okay, coast is clear. If I watch a porn and I'm playing with myself and I come, it's like quick, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. But if I'm having sex, especially a vaginal orgasm, that shit is the things you cry from. That's the type of sex that brings tears to your eyes. That's the type of orgasm that makes your whole body shake, you know? So, to answer your question, I will prefer sex over servicing myself.
Mm. Next up.
Well, to me, like masturbation is about it's like quick, dirty. I just need to come. That's it. Like, get it done as quickly as possible. Watch the porn, and then we're done. Whereas in for me, like having sex is about an experience. Like I can literally go through the process of sex, especially foreplay. I could do that for days. Um, and so for me, it's not about a better or a worse kind of thing. It's more about they're just two different functions, right? Like me by myself is literally, like I said, quick, dirty, just getting off. For me with say my husband, it's about an experience. It's about a head to toe, mind numbing kind of experience. You want to be able to uh, feel it like within your core, within your soul, within your brain. You want to like lose yourself, that whole nine kind of thing. And like, I don't think that's something you can give yourself. It's a very different experience. And I think overall that experience is better. Um, but I think at the end of the day, it's completely different. If you can find a person that you connect with sexually on that level, who's on, the same level you are as far as what you're looking for and as far as what gets you off and what gets them off and that all jives together, that is like there's nothing better than that.
Very interesting. Next up.
Okay, so is the question whether we would prefer masturbation over actual sex?
Yes.
Yeah, sex. Masturbation, that's functional. All that stuff, I don't know what they be showing on them TVs and movies and stuff where women be setting the ambiance. I ain't never set no damn ambiance because that's some forever lonely type shit. Listen, masturbation is like going out in the middle of the wintertime and cleaning your car off and turning it on so it can heat up. You gotta do it, but that's not fun. Nobody wants to do it. It's cold. It's uncomfortable. You do a lot of work.
Hold up, Lady Kendra. Hold up. I need you to start from the beginning, starting now.
What, I bored out or something? No, I'm just saying masturbation is like going outside in the middle of the winter and cleaning your car off and turning it on because you got to do it. Sex is like summertime shy with the top down, riding through Lakeshore Drive. It's not a comparison. It's that shit is functional. That's like me going in the bathroom and plunging the damn toilet. I mean, yeah, you do it because you got to use the toilet next time. That I don't get nothing. I don't really get shit out of that masturbation shit. Give me some sex. I don't want no masturbation shit. It's like,
Are you listening, brothers in the Chicago
do
area?
not do another shout out. I swear, I will find you. I will find you.
Are you
It will
brothers
not be
listening?
pretty.
Are you listening? Well, let me ask. Did I ask Lady Cats yet? I didn't ask Lady Cats yet. Lady Cats.
Oh, real quick, no, I do not like to masturbate. I prefer the real thing.
Okay. All right. Well, let me ask you, ladies, this: when you met, your men, your boyfriend, your husband, your whoever, we kind of talked about this, a couple weeks ago, and I'm gonna touch on it a little bit again. When you met them, were you concerned about your own sexual prowess? Did you think to yourself whether or not it would be good enough, whether or not it would be tight enough, whether or not you would, give him head on the first date or any of that? Was any of that stuff in your minds when you first met that guy?
No, I don't have any apprehension as it pertains to sex. Like I'm not insecure in that department. So that thought has never actually crossed my mind, to be quite honest with you. Now, granted, when somebody whip out some that go down to their knee, because I have had some of those, a couple of those, that'll make you kind of pause and be like, okay, it's like, I wonder if I can handle it. Not if I wonder if it's going to be good or if I'm going to do my part. It's like, I hope he don't like tear me a new asshole. You know what I'm saying? But that's about the depth of my thought about it, especially after a couple of drinks and all that type of stuff. Nah, I ain't worried about it at all.
Man, when I met my husband, I was concerned about my inexperience because counting my husband, my body count is 6. So
That's
I
relatively
was
low.
worried.
That's
Eh,
relatively low.
and like it's really low because the other 5 guys, like 3 of them, I only had sex with literally one time. So I didn't have a lot of sexual experience. Now I had a lot of sexy vibe. So, that was there. It was like, ooh. But as far as the actual experience went, I didn't think I would be bad, of course. But again, the sexual inexperience to a point, it was like, I was willing to kind of let him teach me what he liked because I wasn't coming with a boatload of shit I've already done with this guy and this guy and this guy and that guy. So my marriage was actually filled with a few firsts. That first time I did X, Y, and Z was with him. And he rather enjoyed that. He rather enjoyed having a female that didn't have a high body count. Um, so it was a little bit of that at first because we didn't date, so it wasn't like we knew what to expect sexually prior to the marriage. So it was like, okay, I just was like, well, he a good looking dude, and I guess I look alright or whatever. He'd like it. So we'll just make it work. I mean, we have working body parts. There's nothing that we can't learn. So just do it.
Next.
I have the same fear that Kendra said she had before she got with her husband. Is the inexperience, especially like since today, they talk about millennial girls like having really high body counts and being like ran through at like 20 years old and stuff. Like sometimes I do feel like I'm behind in that aspect, but yeah, that's like my only concern is an experience.
Mm.
Well, for me, I think that I didn't really have concerns. Probably because most of my sexual experience was in getting head more than anything, and it was more like a thing where it's like the fact that I was inexperienced was the good thing. The fact that I
So,
was
so that's how you
interested.
started out. That's how you started out. You
Yeah.
started out with that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
My friend's older brother. I called her house one day and he was like, "Hey, you want head?" I was like,
Mm.
"Sure, why not?" Because I don't know. I didn't
Well,
really.
there, well,
There was no build up.
there's really only one thing to say to that,
What's
and
that?
I'll say it.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
But, so for me, I think because of my kind of introduction into the sexual world to begin with, it was always guys who were slightly older, and it normally was guys who they weren't looking to sleep with me. They were looking a lot of times to give me head because they were looking for an innocent girl. They were looking for a girl who was a virgin, who what didn't have a body count or whatever. So I think that in my mind it kind of established this thing where I was like, my inexperience and my innocence and my I don't really know what this is or what do I do next or whatever. Like I was more interested, so I never really had the opportunity to really be all that worried about anything. I think when I gained a lot of weight and I was up to 200 pounds, I was worried about like my stomach and the way it would hang, and I'd want to always lie on my back so that way, my body would look shaped a certain way. So I think being overweight, I was worried about kind of that and the way that I might look. But that was like a short period of time when I was with my ex-boyfriend. And I think other than that, I was never really worried. I was just more like kind of like interested in game and like, what do you want to do? Okay, let's do this. And this is going to be great. So it was more like, I don't know. I just thought the experience was awesome always, every time. So.
Well, I'll say this one more time. um, when often people take, I think this is a big problem with us. And I'm talking about black people because that's what we talk about here on the old T.P.O.T YouTube channel. We talk about black folks. Now, a lot of times with black people, we have a tendency to put weight on things that we shouldn't put so much weight on, and then things that we should put a lot of weight on, we don't. Do you unicorns believe that when it comes to those matters that we kind of flip-flop that way? Like, do we put more weight on it at times that we shouldn't, or do we put less weight on it at times when we should?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
I said that oftentimes we, as black people, we put more weight on things at times when we shouldn't, and then we put less weight on things at times when we should. Do you think when it comes to that at times we flip-flop and we put more weight on it when we should, and then at times we put less weight on it than we should?
Well, I heard Rihanna bring it up, just one aspect of sex the other day, and I kind of agree with what she was saying, which is that on one side, what men are saying is, they don't want a whore, they want a girl with a high body count, they don't want a girl this and that, they don't want a girl who gives it up and whatever, because they want a good girl. And then on the other side, it's like, well, you can't find a man if you say, I'm not going to sleep with you, I don't want her. So it's kind of like, it's a confusing, I think, message that we're giving, where on one side we're saying we want good girls, and on the other side we don't date them. So what do you do with that? It's the same thing. It's like women who say on one side they want a man who's honest and doesn't cheat and this and that and da da da, and on the other side they want Mr. Smooth Rico Suave who they had to steal from some other girl because he's always with someone. So it's like, I think that it mostly has to do, I think, at least with flip-flopping, it has to do with chastity versus whorishness. And we don't actually have a balance in our minds of what we're actually really looking for. And we don't keep that straight. And I'm not sure if hypocrisy would be the right word to use, but it's something in that realm, to me at least.
That's a good point. I just want to add that I think that in terms of weight, I think men, because women, what I'm about to say, we don't really care about this body count, but men put a lot of weight on that. And I think that sometimes they ask the wrong question. I've always felt that the question shouldn't be how many people have you slept with. The question should be, when was the last time you had an AIDS test and what were the results? Nobody asks those questions. They just want to talk about how many people you slept with and how many people you didn't. You can get you a girl that only had one sex partner that got that package. Now what you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? So for me, I think that as it pertains to the emphasis put on sex in our community or just in general, I think that that's where the emphasis is misplaced on how many people a person has actually slept with. I think that is inconsequential to the bottom line, quite honestly.
Yeah, and you should be asking them when's the last time they went to a gynecologist. Jesus Christ.
That's what I'm saying. They don't ask those questions though. You just dive straight in. Oh, she a good girl, but not really. You don't know that. How many people a person slept with doesn't necessarily equal how good of a person she is or how good of a wife she'll be, and things like that. Sometimes it's a direct correlation, but those are whores. And you could see a whore a mile away. You could smell them. You know, I'm
Literally
talking
something.
about the average woman. Just because the average woman may have dated like a man in her 20s as well, she probably, in my opinion, should, because the same way you out here finding yourself, she's out here finding herself too. Every girl you fuck is somebody's daughter, you know, or sister or whatever. So you get to have sex with all these random women and judge all the random women you have sex with. It doesn't work that way. Let's talk about the things that really matter, like when was the last gynecological visit? When was your last AIDS test and what was the results? You really should also start asking questions like, have you had any abortions? Real talk. People never talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Cause she running around here with her uterus toe up, and think she a
Exactly.
good girl, and she ain't gonna tell you most 9 times out of 10, and you thinking you can have some kids with her, and she up and she can't never have you them kids. You run mess around and find out she had 3 abortions before you. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what messed her uterus up. You know what I'm saying, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But we misplaced sex. I don't know if we ever put too little emphasis on it, but we definitely put too much, because this is how women get what they call dickmatized, where she'll deal with just about anything that dude do, because he be laying it down, boy. He be laying pipe like Super Mario. That nigga just lay pipe every time you turn around. Nigga got a plumber's degree. Like he just lay. All he do is lay pipe. And so he do all kind of crazy shit, talk to her crazy, got all kind of other chicks, because, and she jealous, she keying up cars, and she, launching attacks on Facebook, or she doing whatever she can, keep that around. Now he ain't no good, no other kind of way, but he definitely doing that, you know what I'm saying? And then conversely, men do the same thing. How many times have we heard brothers, man, crazy pussy, the best pussy ever? Cause he putting up with her. Cause why? She jumping off the chandelier on him. You know what I'm saying? And she crazy. He knows she crazy. But he'll deal with it long as he can. Till he get just tired of her, till she bring too much trouble to him. You know what I'm saying? Then he'll, kind of let her go. But before that, he be trying to put up with her, and all that kind of stuff. And because she, like I said, she jumping off the chandelier on him. So, that she do it like no other, really. So she crazy as hell, fighting and all that kind of shit. And you embarrassed to be around her. You don't want nobody to really, really know that you be dealing with her, but and all that kind of stuff. So we definitely misplace it, because, he'll deal with that woman and all of her craziness because of her sex game. And then she'll ruin him, because she'll mess around and do some stuff that he don't, that she can't walk back. And then he get another woman and he can't put up with none of her shortcomings. None of them, no matter how minute they are. And the same thing with a female. She'll put up with that dude, and then another dude come along. He can't have no shortcomings. She ain't gonna put up with him, because she ruined herself on that other dude on Super Mario.
Lady Cats.
I agree with all the ladies on the panel, but also when these parents, try to give their kids like the sex talk, I feel like a lot of black parents just want to brag on themselves and who they slept with, instead of actually telling the children about possible STDs or how to protect themselves and stuff. Like, I got an aunt, she'll teach her daughter, she'll tell her daughter about all the different guys she sleeps with and stuff. But then, her daughter recently slept with somebody, and, she asked her daughter about protection, and she was like, "Oh, I didn't use any." She's like, now she's like freaking out. Like, oh my God, how could you be so irresponsible? And, while it might seem like common sense to a woman in her late 40s, I mean, this girl's like 15 years old. I'm like, why didn't you tell her about that when she was, I don't know, maybe 13, 12 years old, when she was starting to get interested in that type of stuff, you know?
Yeah, well, we talked about that earlier. That's usually the case. That's what it goes back to, educating people. I mean, you have to tell, especially when you're talking about young women. I mean, you got to tell these young women this stuff. I mean, why do you think a lot of these women are hoes? They hoes because they was raised by hoes. Okay. I mean, a hoe more than likely won't be raising little up and coming housewives. If she becomes an up and coming housewives, it's probably after she's had a revelation after she done left from her whole bag mama. So I think a lot of times what happens is you have these women who have hoarded themselves, throughout their teens and 20s and early 30s. And they get to be like, 35, 36, 37, wall age. Okay. And now these women have teenage daughters. And see, these teenage daughters have watched mom drag men in and out the house. They watch mom come in 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. They watch mom have a baby this year, another baby 2 years later, another baby 2 years later. They watch mom do all of that. So I believe they are getting some degree of education in this matter. It's just that the education is being it's a reverse education. It's not don't be like me. Don't do this. I'm going to put you on the pill. I'm going to make sure you're not out there having sex with all these different guys. It's not that education. The education is watching mom traipse dudes in and out the house, hearing mom getting her back blown out in the back room. I think that is the education that they picked up. Therefore, they kind of wear that when they go out because what do they see mom more focused on? Not them, not their education, not their siblings, not even most of the time making sure they eat, have clothes, can read, write, account. What's mom's main focus? Mom's main focus is men. They see men around mom a lot, not their fathers now, not their father, but men. So I believe a lot of our young girls kind of take that on, and as they grow older and are able to sexually express themselves, especially the ones who have been molested by said men that mom had drug into the house. I think when they get older and can sexually express themselves to a degree, I think that's what brings about the promiscuity, the irresponsibility, the bad judgment, the bad decision making as far as their bodies are concerned, because they've learned it. So they live it. And I'm a true believer of that. This was a good show tonight, y'all. Yeah, this was good. I appreciate y'all coming on, answering some tough questions like y'all always do. I'm gonna say this before we go. Oftentimes, as Black people, we put a lot of weight on sex and sexual perception, and also things that have nothing to do with sex. We have a tendency to sexualize it as people. And I think that it has caused us to be somewhat stunted as people. Now, we can pathologize all day long about why it's that way. We can say it's white supremacy. We can say it's racism. We can say it's the white power structure. We can say it's media. We can say all this kind of stuff. But the reality is this: when it comes down to it, we are going to have to take care of us. And when I say we take care of us, I'm talking about us taking care of our children, educating them in the matters of not just being decent people, but being responsible people, being responsible with the people they have sex with, being responsible with the decision to have sex at all. I don't want any of that to be lost tonight. I mean, we crack jokes and I talk shit, but I don't want any of that to be lost, because the next generation of people, those of you who have small children, you have a lot of power, because see, you can dictate whether or not those kids grow up to be promiscuous. You can dictate whether or not they grow up to be honorable, decent, uh, family oriented. You have a lot of influence over that. And to the people who are out there listening that have kids that they're not educating them in these matters, you're making a big mistake. And see, that mistake you probably won't see till another 5, 10, 15 years from now. But unfortunately, by then, it'll be too damn late. Um, Once again, I want to thank the Unicorn 4 for laying down a good show like they always do. I want to thank my mods for keeping the lines in the chat, keeping the donation links in the chat. I appreciate that. I appreciate everybody stopping by, checking us out, spending some time with us. Make sure you stop by the old Proper Thought Series YouTube page. That's Proper Thought Series on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe to this here channel. Drop a few coins in the bucket if you're feeling generous. If not, at least hit the like button, and make sure you stop by the Proper Thought Series Facebook page. That's Proper Thought Series at Facebook. And stop by the TPOT bandwagon page as well. And make sure you sign up to be a group member on the Proper Thought Series group fan page. Go ahead, request to be a member. You'll get right in. Trust me, you will. And make sure you check us out on WhatsApp and Instagram. That's Proper Thought on Instagram. And we also have a Twitter. That's at TPOT Media on Twitter. That's at TPOT Media on Twitter. I keep telling y'all, follow us on Twitter or I'm going to haunt your asses in your sleep. Once again, I'd like to thank the Unicorn 4 for coming through, laying down a good damn show. Lady Classic, Lady Ming, Lady Cats, and Lady Kendra, T.L.O.T, the ladies of thought, always laying down a good show. Make sure you have your black behinds here next week, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time, right here on the OTPOT YouTube page, because the Unicorn 4 will be live and direct again. With that, I will leave you with 3 words like I always do. And I'm going to leave y'all with T.L.O.T's theme song that I played at the beginning as well. But with that, I will leave you with 3 words like I always do. Open your minds. And we out of here, y'all.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night, everyone. Great conversation. We'll check back in with Cats in a year. See what's up.
Y'all stupid.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Peace, folks.
Lady, class, lady, Lady Ling, Lady Class, Lady Kendra. Only from T.L.O.T.